Welcome to the Stranger Than Fiction podcast. I'm Chase.
And I'm Adam. This is the podcast dedicated to exploring real shit that sounds totally made up. And tonight we are talking about an interesting topic that includes things like people ruling the world, especially celebrities. We got lizard overlords, and maybe a little bit of aliens.
It's quite the lineup.
Yeah, exactly. The Illuminati is what we're talking about. They are a secret society that has become the basis of basically a fuck ton of these types of wild ideas and conspiracy theories. And
movies and books and everything else.
Exactly. How are you feeling tonight, Chase?
I'm feeling better. I've been fighting a pretty monster cold, and I'm going to take the day off work tomorrow to hopefully recoup fully and be ready to take on the rest of the week. How are you doing tonight?
Not too bad. Glad to hear you're recovered. We put it out on social media that you had E. coli.
I saw that. I'm glad I can never get sick without being scrutinized.
Just don't get sick when we're trying to record. So
I'm sorry.
But yeah, we're talking about the Illuminati tonight and what this is all about. Let's take a look at some of the facts about the Illuminati and its origins first, maybe.
Yeah.
The group was started by a guy named Adam Weishaupt.
Weishaupt?
I've got to say he's got a great name, Adam. Man, that's just top notch.
I believe that's his middle name, though. I believe his first name is Johann, so don't get carried away.
Adam's better. So this guy was a law school professor back in Bavaria. So Bavaria is basically present-day Germany. So he taught law at a college. And back at the time in Bavaria, the country was really Catholic and very, very conservative. I mean, there was a lot of people that were feeling very stifled from a creative thought and freedom perspective. And this was kind of near the end of the Age of Enlightenment. This is back in the late 1700s.
Yeah, and one thing that I always like to bring up about, we'll just call him Adam since his last name is German and we are not German. One thing I always like to bring up about him is he was Jewish. His parents died, and he got raised by his uncle. So I feel like his sort of animosity towards the Catholic Church, of that sort of strong upbringing, that family values type thing, is sort of the nexus of why he had the thought process that he had. But continue.
So Adam, he, feeling this kind of oppression from the government and the Catholic Church, he basically decided to take some of his students that he felt were kind of like-minded to himself and form a group, which became the basis of the secret society known as the Illuminati. They formed to kind of sought to find what they called illumination. Illuminati is Latin for enlightened ones. So basically they had their first meeting on May 1st, 1776. So Adam and a couple of his students, I believe 4 or 5 of them, met in the woods and kind of had their first meeting. Do you remember? We used to hang out in the woods a lot, you and me.
We did. We didn't come from a place of much else to do, so the woods were like our city blocks. So we used to find a lot of creative different things to do in the woods. We would steal apples from the orchards. Right?
Steal? I don't know about steal, but we used to borrow
lifted
them.
Product.
Yeah, we borrowed them, and we would throw them at each other.
Yeah, not just us. I mean, everybody in town.
I think the best apple war we had was maybe like 5-on-5, something like that.
Yeah, and then when we got older and the apples ran dry, we started to use other means like rocks and sticks, which is not anywhere near as safe.
No. I mean, I definitely remember one apple war. This was back in the days of apples, where it was a little safer. I got hit right below the eye, right before picture day. I don't know if you remember that.
I do remember that. Do you think that's something you let me live down? I mean, that's the one story you always tell about apple wars and rock wars. I mean, it's just Adam got hit in the eye right before picture day, and
it wasn't you that hit me though.
The end of the world. I know, but it's the only story that you ever reminisce about.
I believe you also have a story that you're the only one. You only tell this one story about me hitting you with a rock. So
I do, but I don't need to. We don't need to tell that. I don't want you to be illuminated in the wrong light. But needless to say, all of those stories aside, I think what they were doing in the woods is a much more important meeting than what we were doing.
I don't know about important, but much more safe for sure.
Yeah, maybe.
But they met in the woods and kind of had their first meeting. I mean, the ultimate goal of the group, at least what I saw, was they were trying to create a state of liberty and moral equality, which sounds really nice and good. The group grew to be about 2,000 members or so across Europe. I think it's also important to note that when Adam was trying to, kind of more or less rebel against the Catholic Church, he actually explored another group or society, the Freemasons, and I believe he, kind of attended some of their initial meetings and whatnot to try to join, but he ultimately didn't agree with a lot of their ideas, and as I saw, potentially could not afford the buy-in. So he kind of led him down the path of forming his own group. If you guys won't let me in, I'll go do my own thing. Kind of a baby attitude.
Maybe I haven't heard that he didn't have enough money. I mean, I don't know if that would be true based off of. I mean, he was a pretty high level professor at a pretty good school. So I don't know. Maybe the Freemasons were just ridiculously expensive back then. But I think
they definitely were. I mean, it was kind of like the elite, high society, wealthy only, old white man club, basically.
Yeah, I think his ideas became bigger than the group, and then he sort of branched off from there.
But, I mean, I think it's pretty debatable, if you look at history, how successful the Illuminati were during their time of activity. So they, like I said, formed in 1776, May the 1st. And by 1985, so 9 years later...
1785?
What did I say?
You said 1985.
Oh, 1985. Wow, that's a really long time. Yeah, 1785, 9 years later, the Duke of Bavaria, I guess that's like the president or king or whatever, he basically made secret societies illegal and put in place stiff punishments like death for being a member. So essentially that is the end of the recorded Illuminati history, less than 10 years after it started. They didn't have a lot of time to get off the ground, but as the theories go, they potentially have been acting in secret since that point, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, since that point is a little bit. I think if we're going all the way from 1776 all the way until present day, there's probably some sort of loose breakup there of some sort, or loose operational pause. But the whole goal of this was to recruit really smart people, really rich people, to sort of grow at the same pace and the same sort of growth pattern as the Freemasons. And although there were only 2,000 or 3,000 people that were involved in the Illuminati, or however many there were, I think it's documented that it was probably 2,000 or 3,000 people. These people made it their goal. The group as a whole said, hey, let's disguise ourselves. Let's not use our own names. Let's not ever speak that this is an organization, and let's make our way into these other organizations, penetrate these organizations, and sort of move up through the ranks in order to guide influence based off of our rankings in the other organizations, and all sort of work towards this common goal that the Illuminati was founded. So yes, I do believe that even though there was a 10-year span that they were effective, they had a very small number of people comparatively to the Freemasons or other secret societies or just societies as a whole. I do feel the very basis of what they were doing doesn't allow for an easy sort of, the Duke said this and we're done. I think they were embedded in these groups already. They continued to grow, and they all had a common ideology very early on that would support that continued growth. So, yeah, I mean, I do feel like this group in some form or some mindset exists to this day.
So, I mean, after the group disbanded, I mean, Adam, if the group was so successful as you had said, I mean, you would have thought that, we could point to Adam or some of the notable members, that have gone on to do something and were successful in their infiltration or what have you, moving up the ranks and being influential. I mean, Adam himself did not do anything of consequence after the group was disbanded in 1785. I mean, he was basically just an author. He wrote some books, but nothing significant. So, I mean, how do you explain I mean, this just seems like a way to make yourselves sound good, right? That just saying, oh, hey, we did all this really great stuff, but it was secret, so no one can know about it. That's how good we are.
Yeah, and I don't think you necessarily need to look at Adam as the exclusive leader of the group. I think when you attract these type of personalities that are wealthy, that are powerful, they're in politics, they're in business, they're, royalty and things like that. I think that group sort of becomes a very fluid group when it comes to who the leader is. I think Adam brings all of these people together, and I think that group sort of branches out from there based upon the members. And you can read a lot of stuff about how there was infighting and how part of why the Duke was able to disband them was because there was supposed insiders, leaking documents or, sort of rattling off these things to the Duke in order to fuel that fire to disband secret societies. But also these people were growing in a power level at the same rate that the secret society was being disbanded. So I don't necessarily think that if you look at Adam's success, that it equals the Illuminati's success. I think the foundation he started, and it grows to something that he can no longer control once he recruits these alpha dog personalities.
So, I mean, we said earlier that the Illuminati, the term or the word Illuminati is Latin for the enlightened ones.
Yeah.
So, I mean, have you heard of this Age of Enlightenment?
I've heard of the Age of Enlightenment. For me to speak any intelligence around the Age of Enlightenment, which is sort of ironic, I cannot.
Okay, so again, Illuminati, Latin for enlightened ones. So it's really happened. The timing of this is really at the tail end of this Age of Enlightenment. And this is a period in history from about 1715 to 1789. So the Illuminati founding is really at the tail end. And this is where a lot of same kind of mentality that we're talking about developing and that the Illuminati is kind of espousing is happening in this period. So you've got, kind of famous philosophers like Descartes and other people like the economist Adam Smith and Voltaire that are happening in this period. So, I mean, what it seems like to me is essentially this is just kind of like a Me Too type of thing where, this enlightenment has been going on for 60 years and it's just like jumping on the bandwagon type of thing is what it seems like to me. And this is just the name that stuck because it sounded cool. That's why we're still talking about it today.
Maybe. And I think Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, I think, was a member, he's a pretty, if we're ranking, Descartes and people like that, I think von Goethe or von Gaeth, whatever his name is also in that conversation as well. And he was a supposed member of the Illuminati. And I think there's probably credence to that, what you just said, because the original, the Duke mandate, we'll call it, that basically disbanded the secret societies was an overarching movement to disband secret societies. It wasn't directly geared at the Illuminati. There was that mandate that came down. Adam actually thought maybe, hey, the Illuminati can survive based off of the fact that they're hidden, based off of the fact that nobody ever speaks about them. None of the members are actually, they don't meet as the Illuminati. They sort of just live in this sort of orb of Illuminati. And then the Duke comes down with another mandate after this original mandate that says, hey, we're calling the Illuminati out specifically. It is illegal to be a member of the Illuminati. So I think, yes, you are correct when you say that there was a lot more going on during this time period. But I think for the Duke to call out the Illuminati specifically holds a lot of water in my mind because I think it became a lot more powerful than just sort of any other secret society.
I mean, how do you describe the goals of what this group was trying to do?
So I always like to compare the Illuminati's goals to that of, if you look at maybe WikiLeaks with a mix of the group Anonymous today. I think those are two sort of groups that you can look at and say, if those two groups were combined, I think a lot of the same ideals and a lot of the same sort of thought process would exist in that group comparatively to the Illuminati. I think they had a lot of despise against the current foundation, the current,